Ancient teenagers did not have phones to ignore people. So what did they ignore instead? No bedroom door to slam, no school to complain about, no weekend to wait for, just fire smoke, sharp stones, hungry adults, wild animals, and the pressure to become useful. They were not little kids anymore. But they were not fully trusted adults either. Strong enough to help, restless enough to cause problems, old enough to learn survival, young enough to think poking something dangerous was probably fine. So what did ancient teenagers actually do all day? Were they working, training, helping, rebelling, or just standing near the fire looking bored while the entire tribe wondered what to do with them? The strange part is that being a teenager feels like a modern problem. We imagine teenagers needing privacy, arguing with parents, testing rules, trying to look older, and somehow being tired at the worst possible time. But adolescence is not an invention of malls, schools, or Wi-Fi. It is a biological waiting room. The body is changing fast, but the brain is still learning how to judge risk. And in an ancient tribe, that was a very weird combination. Imagine having the confidence to say, "I can handle this," while standing near a river full of danger, a forest full of predators, and tools sharp enough to ruin your day. A child could be protected. An adult had responsibilities. But a teenager was trapped in the middle. Old enough to help, young enough to make bad decisions, strong enough to carry firewood, curious enough to poke the wrong animal. And maybe that was the real problem. Ancient teenagers were not just growing up, they were becoming useful before they were fully sensible. The simple answer is that ancient teenagers probably spent the day helping. They carried wood, they gathered plants, they watched younger children, they learned where to find water, how to follow tracks, how to hold a tool, and how not to annoy the person holding the sharpest spear. And yes, that was a big part of it. In a small group, nobody could be useless for too long. Food had to be found. Fire had to be kept alive. Children had to be protected. But that answer is too neat, because teenagers were not just smaller workers, they were humans in rehearsal. Every task was also a test of strength, a test of attention, a test of courage, and probably a test of how many times an adult could say, "Don't do that," before the teenager did it anyway. Picture one day in an ancient camp. The sun comes up, and the teenager is already surrounded by lessons. Not written lessons, living lessons. An adult breaks stone into a sharp edge, and the teenager watches the angle of the hand. A hunter points at marks in the mud, and the teenager learns that a footprint is not just a footprint, it is a message. A woman sorts berries into two piles, and the teenager learns that one pile is food, and the other pile is a very bad afternoon. There is no classroom. The whole world is the classroom. A teenager might spend the morning carrying firewood, collecting water, scraping animal hides, fixing tools, or gathering plants. But while doing these boring jobs, they were also learning the map of survival. Which tree gives good branches? Which smell means rotten food? Which bird call means something nearby just moved? Later, they might practice throwing a spear, setting a trap, climbing, running, or following tracks. Probably not perfectly. Probably with too much confidence. One throws too early. Another steps on dry leaves and scares the animal away. Someone laughs. Someone gets yelled at. And everyone learns. That is the strange thing. Their day was not divided into school, chores, work, and free time. Everything mixed together. Work looked like training. Training looked like play. Play could become danger. And danger could become a story told around the fire later. By the end of the day, the ancient teenager may not have done one big heroic thing. But they had watched, copied, carried, failed, tried again, ignored advice, got corrected, and slowly collected the invisible skills that made a person useful. But here is the part that feels surprisingly modern. Ancient teenagers were not just quietly training to become adults. They were probably trying to impress each other. A risky jump over a stream, a stupid dare near a fire, a hunt where someone walked too far ahead because they wanted to look brave. That sounds silly now, but in a small tribe, reputation mattered. Being seen as useful, strong, clever, generous, or fearless could change your place in the group. So teenage risk-taking may not have been only a problem. Sometimes it was a strategy, a dangerous one. A young person had to show they were ready for more responsibility, but the only way to prove courage was to get close to danger. So maybe ancient adults looked at teenagers the same way adults do now, with fear, with frustration, and with the quiet hope that this strange, restless creature would somehow survive long enough to become helpful. So what did ancient teenagers do all day? They learned how to become adults before anyone had a word for teenager. They worked, played, watched, copied, failed, helped, annoyed people, and slowly became useful. There was no school schedule, no official training program, no clear line between childhood and adulthood, just daily life, repeating again and again, until the tribe started trusting them with bigger tasks. An ancient teenager was not just passing time. They were being shaped by every fire, every tool, every mistake, and every adult saying, "Not like that." So maybe the ancient teenager was not that mysterious after all. Take away the phone, the school, the messy room, and the dramatic sighing on a couch, and something familiar is still there. A young person standing between two worlds. Too old to be protected from everything. Too young to understand everything. Trying to look ready. Trying not to look scared. Trying to prove they belonged. And somewhere, thousands of years ago, an ancient adult probably looked at one of them and thought, "Why are you like this?